I still remember the smell of gasoline on my father's hands when he reached for my Bible. That's not where this story starts, but it's where everything changed. It's the moment I realized that the man who gave me life was prepared to take it away. But let me take you back. Back to before the flames. Before the locked doors and the screams. Back to when I was still blind enough to call my prison a palace. My name doesn't matter anymore. The girl I used to be died the day Jesus found me. But back then, I was Princess Amira, fourth daughter of a Saudi royal family so wealthy that we didn't count money. We counted power, influence, control. I grew up walking on Italian marble floors so polished I could see my reflection staring back at me, a ghost in a golden cage. Our palace had 42 rooms, and I felt alone in every single one of them. The chandeliers overhead dripped with crystals that cost more than most people's homes, casting fractured rainbows across walls that heard too many secrets and too much silence. Every morning, I woke to the call to prayer echoing across Riyadh. That haunting sound, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, it used to comfort me. Now it makes my skin crawl, because I know what I know. But back then? I pressed my forehead to my prayer mat 5 times a day like my salvation depended on it. Spoiler alert, it didn't. My mother dressed me in custom abayas, black silk so fine it felt like water running through your fingers. Underneath, I wore Chanel and Dior. Designer cages for a designer prisoner. My jewelry box overflowed with diamonds I never asked for, gifts from a father who thought expensive things could replace his presence. His love. His basic human decency. I had everything a girl could want. Private tutors. A bedroom the size of most apartments. Drivers who took me anywhere I wanted to go, as long as a male guardian approved it first. As long as I didn't speak too loudly. As long as I remembered my place. But here's what nobody tells you about golden cages: the bars are still bars, even when they're made of gold. I was 17 when my father summoned me to his private majlis, his sitting room where deals were made and fates were decided. The air always smelled like oud perfume and power in that room, thick and suffocating. He sat cross-legged on burgundy cushions, his graying beard meticulously trimmed, his white thobe pristine. Perfect. Untouchable. His eyes, though. His eyes were dead. Black. Empty. Like looking into a well with no bottom. Amira, he said, and my name on his tongue sounded like a business transaction. Not his daughter. Not his blood. Just another asset to be managed. Sit. I sat. Because you don't disobey. Not in my world. Not if you want to keep breathing. Your Uncle Hassan and I have finalized the arrangements, he continued, stroking his beard the way he always did when he was about to ruin someone's life and pretend it was God's will. You will marry your cousin Khalid. The wedding is in 6 months. The room tilted. My stomach dropped like I'd been thrown off a building. Khalid. My cousin. The one with cold hands and a colder smile. The one who looked at me like I was meat at a market, something to be purchased and consumed. Baba, please, my voice cracked. I hated how weak I sounded. How small. It is decided. His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Authority doesn't shout. It simply exists, heavy and absolute. This union will strengthen our family. You should be honored. Honored. That word tasted like poison. Like bile rising in my throat. I'm 17, I whispered. I want to study. I want to. You want. He laughed, this short, bitter sound that wasn't really a laugh at all. Your wants are irrelevant. You exist to serve your family. To honor your family. This marriage is your purpose. Your duty. And you will fulfill it. That was the first crack. The first moment I felt something dark and desperate bloom in my chest, a seed of rebellion that would either save me or destroy me. Maybe both. I left that room walking on numb legs, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would burst through my ribs. My mother found me later, crying in my bedroom, mascara streaking down my cheeks like black rivers. "Ummy," I sobbed into her shoulder. "Please. Tell him no. I can't marry Khalid. I can't." She stroked my hair, gently, mechanically, the way you might pet a dog you feel sorry for but can't actually help. "Habibti, my love, this is the way. This is what Allah wants for you." "How do you know?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "How do you know what Allah wants?" Her hand stopped moving. For just a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Doubt? Fear? Recognition? But then it was gone, replaced by the same resigned exhaustion she'd worn my entire life. "Because," she whispered, "this is what all good Muslim daughters do. We submit. We obey. We survive. Survive. Not live. Not thrive. Survive." That night, I prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. I begged Allah to change my father's mind. To give me a way out. To show me I mattered as more than a bargaining chip in some family power play. The ceiling stayed silent. The heavens stayed closed. And somewhere deep inside my soul, in a place I didn't even know existed yet, a question started forming, a dangerous, forbidden, life-altering question. What if I'd been praying to the wrong God my entire life? I didn't know it then, but that question would lead me to fire. To fury. To a love so fierce and so true it would burn down everything I thought I knew. And it all started in that golden cage, when I finally realized that sometimes the most dangerous prison is the one you're born into. If you're watching this and you've ever felt trapped, truly trapped, not just by walls or rules, but by expectations, by religion, by family, by fear, I need you to keep watching. Because what happened next? It's going to sound impossible. Insane, even. But I promise you, every word is true. Let me tell you about the man I was forced to call family. Khalid wasn't just my cousin. He was my father's favorite nephew, the son my father wished he'd had instead of 4 disappointing daughters. Khalid was 28 years old, successful in the oil business, and respected among the extended family. On paper, he was the perfect match. In reality, he was a monster wearing expensive cologne. The first time I saw him after the engagement announcement, he came to our palace for a formal introduction, as if we hadn't grown up at the same family gatherings, as if I hadn't spent years avoiding his gaze at weddings and Eid celebrations. He walked into our sitting room like he owned it. Maybe he thought he did. His thobe was crisp white, his gutra perfectly positioned, his beard trimmed to fashionable stubble. Handsome, if you didn't look too closely. If you didn't see the cruelty that lived behind his smile. Amira. He said my name slowly, tasting it, like he was already deciding what he'd rename me after the wedding. You've grown beautiful. His eyes traveled down my body, slowly, deliberately, even though I was covered head to toe. I felt naked. Violated. I wrapped my abaya tighter around myself and kept my gaze on the Persian rug beneath my feet. Thank you, I whispered, because that's what good girls do. We thank men for objectifying us. My father beamed. Actually beamed, more pride in his face for Khalid's attention than I'd seen in 17 years of trying to earn his love. She is modest, my father said, like I wasn't even there. Like I was a car he was selling, and he was listing the features. Well-educated. Obedient. She will make you an excellent wife. Khalid stepped closer. Too close. I could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive that made my throat tighten. He reached out and lifted my chin with his finger, forcing me to look at him. His eyes were brown. Dead brown. Like dried blood. I look forward to our wedding night, he said softly, just loud enough for me to hear, quiet enough that my father missed it. Then he smiled, this terrible, knowing smile that promised pain disguised as pleasure. I wanted to run. To scream. To claw at his face until that smile disappeared forever. Instead, I smiled back. Because survival meant pretending. It always had. The months crawled by like wounded animals. 6 months until the wedding became 5, then 4, then 3. Each day felt like being buried alive, one shovel of dirt at a time. Khalid visited regularly. Always proper. Always appropriate in front of my family. But he'd find moments, brief, terrible moments, when no one was watching. He'd brush against me in the hallway, his hand accidentally grazing places it shouldn't. He'd whisper things in my ear during family dinners, vile promises about what he'd do to me once I was his property. I'm going to break you, he breathed one night when everyone else was distracted by dessert. Gently at first. Then completely. Until you forget you were ever anything but mine. I dropped my spoon. It clattered against the china plate, the sound impossibly loud in my ears. Are you all right, Amira? My mother asked, concern flickering across her face. Yes, Ummi. I'm fine. The lie came easily now. I'd been practicing. Khalid smiled at me across the table. Patient. Confident. He had time. He had permission. He had everything. 3 months before the wedding, something shifted in my father. He became obsessed with my purity, not just physical, but spiritual, mental, ideological. Every morning, he'd quiz me on Quranic verses. Every evening, he'd lecture me on a wife's duty to her husband. Your body belongs to Khalid now, he told me one afternoon, his voice matter of fact, like he was explaining a business contract. You understand this, yes? From the moment you sign the nikah, your body is not your own. Your time is not your own. Your thoughts are not your own. You exist for his pleasure and his honor. Yes, Baba. My voice sounded hollow. Empty. I barely recognized it anymore. If you shame this family, if you shame Khalid, there will be consequences. He leaned forward, and for the first time in years, he truly looked at me. Really looked. And what I saw terrified me more than Khaled ever could. There was nothing there. No love. No regret. No recognition that I was his daughter, his blood, his child. What kind of consequences? I asked, even though I already knew. Even though every girl in my world knew. The kind that make you disappear, he said simply. Honor is everything, Amira. Everything. And you are just a girl. Just a girl. Those words echoed in my head for days. Weeks. They became a drumbeat I couldn't escape. Just a girl, just a girl, just a girl. 2 months before the wedding, my father called another family meeting. This time, all 4 of my sisters were present, ranging from age 14 to 23. My mother sat in the corner, silent as always, her hands folded in her lap like broken birds. I'm gathering you here, my father began, his voice carrying that particular tone he used when he wanted to be feared, because your sister Amira's wedding is approaching. This is a sacred time. A blessed time. And I want all of you to understand what is expected. He turned to me, his eyes boring into mine. Amira, stand. I stood. My legs shook. This is what obedience looks like, he told my sisters. This is what submission to Allah's will looks like. Your sister is fulfilling her purpose. She is bringing honor to this family through a blessed union. And each of you, when your time comes, will do the same. My youngest sister, Layla, raised her hand timidly. Baba, what if we don't want to marry who you choose? The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. My father moved so fast I barely saw it. His hand shot out and grabbed Layla's wrist, hard enough that she gasped, tears instantly springing to her eyes. Want. His voice was silk wrapped around razor blades. What you want is irrelevant. What you want is childish. What you want is haram if it contradicts what I decide. I am your father. I am your guardian. I am the authority Allah placed over you. And if you ever question that again. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. He released Layla's wrist. She cradled it against her chest, sobbing quietly. And I stood there. Frozen. Useless. Hating myself for my silence. Hating him for his cruelty. Hating Allah for creating a world where this was considered righteous. That night, I locked myself in my bathroom and stared at my reflection in the gold-framed mirror. Designer makeup couldn't hide what I saw, a ghost. A shell. A girl who was dying by degrees and calling it obedience. I pressed my hands against the cool marble countertop and whispered into the silence, if you're real, if you're there, if you actually care about me at all, give me a sign. Show me there's more than this. Please. I'm begging you. The ceiling fan whirred overhead. The call to prayer echoed in the distance. And Allah, as always, said nothing. But something else was listening. Someone else heard that desperate prayer. I just didn't know it yet. 6 weeks before the wedding, Khaled gave me a gift, a gold necklace with a pendant that spelled out his name in Arabic calligraphy. So you never forget who you belong to, he said, fastening it around my neck. The chain felt like a noose. I smiled. It's beautiful. Thank you. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. Soon, I won't need jewelry to mark you as mine. Soon, I'll mark you in ways that don't wash off. My blood turned to ice. That night, alone in my room, I clawed at the necklace until the clasp broke. I threw it across the room and watched it skitter under my dresser like the worthless thing it was. And I made a decision. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But somehow, some way, I was going to find a way out of this nightmare. Even if it killed me. Especially if it killed me. Because I was starting to realize that there are worse things than death. And marrying Khalid was definitely one of them. The darkness came slowly, then all at once. Have you ever prayed so hard you thought your heart would crack open? Have you ever begged God, really begged Him, until your voice went hoarse and your knees ached and tears soaked through your prayer mat? I did. Every single night for weeks. 5 times a day, I performed Salah. I washed my hands, my face, my feet in the ritual ablutions. I covered myself properly. I faced Mecca. I recited the words I'd memorized since childhood, Allahu Akbar, Subhana Rabbil Adhim, and I meant them with every shattered piece of my soul. But the heavens? They stayed silent as a grave. It started 4 weeks before the wedding. I became obsessed with prayer, desperate for intervention, convinced that if I just prayed hard enough, long enough, perfectly enough, Allah would rescue me. He had to. The Quran promised that He heard every prayer, that He was closer than my jugular vein, that He was merciful and compassionate. So where was His mercy? Where was His compassion? I added extra prayers beyond the required 5. I woke at 3 in the morning for tahajjud, the night prayer that supposedly brings you closest to Allah. The palace was silent at that hour, just me and the darkness and my desperate whispers echoing off marble floors. Please, I begged, my forehead pressed to the prayer mat until it hurt. Please don't let this wedding happen. Change my father's heart. Change Khalid's heart. Send an angel. Send a miracle. Send anything. Nothing. The ceiling didn't split open. My father didn't suddenly develop a conscience. Khalid didn't mysteriously disappear. The wedding preparations continued like a machine that couldn't be stopped. Invitations sent, venue booked, my wedding dress hanging in my closet like a funeral shroud made of white silk and shattered dreams. I started fasting. Not just during Ramadan, but random days throughout the week. Monday and Thursday, like the Prophet supposedly did. Sometimes 3 days in a row. My mother noticed my weight dropping. Habibti, you need to eat, she said, concern finally breaking through her perpetual numbness. You're getting too thin. I'm fasting for Allah, I told her. Praying for His guidance. She looked at me with something like pity. Or maybe recognition. Like she'd once been where I was, before life beat the hope out of her. Allah has already guided you, she said quietly. Your path is Khalid. Your path is marriage. Accept it, and you'll find peace. But I couldn't accept it. Wouldn't accept it. So I fasted harder, prayed longer, recited more Quran, gave more charity, checking off every religious box I could think of, performing righteousness like a circus act, hoping Allah was watching, hoping He'd finally respond. He didn't. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to the women's Quran study at our local mosque. I'd never been particularly religious in that way, formal study always felt dry and academic. But I was drowning, and I'd grab at anything that looked like it might float. The teacher, Sister Fatima, was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. She taught us about Surah Ar-Rahman, the Most Merciful. We read verse after verse about Allah's blessings, His kindness, His provision. Then which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? The question repeated throughout the surah like a drumbeat. Which favors will you deny? I wanted to stand up and scream, all of them. I deny all of them. What favor is there in being sold to a man who terrifies me? What blessing is there in being property? What mercy is there in a God who watches your suffering and calls it His will? But I didn't scream. I sat there, silent, the perfect picture of modest devotion. After class, I approached Sister Fatima privately. "Sister," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." What if you're being forced to do something you don't want to do? Something that terrifies you? And you've prayed and prayed, but Allah doesn't answer. What does that mean? Her expression softened with understanding, the kind of understanding that comes from experience, not theory. "Sometimes," she said carefully, choosing her words like she was walking through a minefield, "Allah's answer is silence. Sometimes He's teaching us patience, submission, trust. But what if the thing I'm being forced to do is wrong?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. What if it's cruel? Sister Fatima's face hardened almost imperceptibly. The kindness in her eyes flickered and died. "Sister Amira," she said, her voice taking on that particular tone Muslim women use when they're about to enforce the patriarchy on each other, "are you speaking about your upcoming marriage?" I should have lied. Should have backtracked. Should have protected myself. Instead, I nodded. "Your marriage is a blessing," she said firmly. "Your father has chosen well for you. Khalid is a good Muslim man from a respected family. Your reluctance is just shaitan whispering doubts in your ear. You must resist. You must submit. This is your test, and if you fail it, you fail Allah." I left that mosque feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. 2 weeks before the wedding, I tried one more time. I locked myself in my room, spread out my prayer mat, and spent 3 hours in prostration. Face down. Forehead pressed to the ground. Hands open in supplication. I recited every dua I'd ever memorized. I begged in Arabic, in English, in desperate, incoherent sobs. "I can't do this," I wept into my prayer mat, my tears leaving dark splotches on the fabric. "I can't marry him. I can't live like this. Please, Allah. Please. If you're merciful like the Quran says, show me mercy. If you're compassionate, show me compassion. If you love me even a fraction of how you claim to love your creation, then save me." My voice cracked on that last word. I was empty. Wrung out. Exhausted in every possible way a human can be exhausted. I waited. And waited. And waited. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the distant hum of traffic outside my window. No angel appeared. No miraculous sign. No sudden revelation. Just silence, thick, suffocating, absolute silence. That's when I felt it, the moment something broke inside me. Not dramatically. Not with a bang. Just a quiet snap, like a thread that's been pulled too tight for too long. I sat up slowly, my face swollen from crying, my eyes dry because I had no tears left. And I said out loud, to the empty room, to the silent ceiling, to whatever God might or might not be listening. You're not there, are you? Or you're there and you don't care. Either way, I'm alone. I've always been alone. The words hung in the air like smoke. And for the first time in my life, I felt the terrible, terrifying freedom of doubt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing in circles like a trapped animal. If Allah wasn't going to save me, I'd have to save myself. But how? I had no money of my own, everything was controlled by my father. I had no passport, locked in his safe. I had nowhere to go, no skills to survive on my own, no friends who weren't bound by the same system that was crushing me. I was 17 years old, and I was completely, utterly trapped. Around 2 in the morning, I got out of bed and walked to my window. I looked out over Riyadh, the glittering city lights stretching toward the horizon, thousands of lives happening out there, people who were free in ways I'd never be. And I thought about jumping. My bedroom was on the 3rd floor. High enough? Probably. I pressed my hand against the glass, feeling its coolness against my palm. It would be easy. Open the window. Climb out. Let gravity do the rest. They'd call it an accident. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd call it what it was, escape. Is this it? I whispered to my reflection. Is this all there is? Marry a monster or die trying to avoid it? My reflection had no answer. But somewhere in the back of my mind, that dangerous question resurfaced, the one I'd first asked months ago. What if I'd been praying to the wrong God? I pulled away from the window and made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, while my family was at Friday prayers, I did something unthinkable. Something haram. Something that could get me killed. I opened my laptop, cleared my browser history preemptively, and typed 4 words into Google. Who is Jesus Christ? My finger hovered over the enter button. If my father found out, I was dead. Actually dead. Not metaphorically. Not dramatically. Just dead. But I was dying anyway. Slowly. One day at a time. So what did I have to lose? I pressed enter. And a rabbit hole opened beneath my feet. Listen to me carefully, if you're watching this. Maybe you're Muslim like I was. Maybe you've prayed prayers that bounced off the ceiling and got no response. Maybe you've felt that crushing silence that makes you wonder if anyone's listening at all. I need you to understand, I didn't go looking for Jesus because I was rebellious. I didn't search for him because I wanted to betray my family or my faith. I searched for him because I was drowning, and Allah wouldn't throw me a rope. I searched for him because I had nothing left to lose. And what I found? It changed everything. The first website that loaded was a simple Christian testimony site. Nothing fancy. Just text on a white background, words that might as well have been written in fire for how they burned into my mind. I was a Muslim for 23 years. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted. I followed every rule. But I never felt loved. Then I met Jesus, and for the first time in my life, I knew what it meant to be chosen. My hands shook on the keyboard. I glanced at my bedroom door, locked, but still. Paranoia crawled up my spine like spiders. If anyone walked in. If anyone saw. If anyone knew. But I kept reading. One testimony led to another. Then to a YouTube video with the sound muted, subtitles on. Then to a PDF of the Bible, the New Testament, that I downloaded and immediately hid in a folder labeled Economics Notes. For 3 days, I did nothing but read. Between prayer times that now felt hollow and empty, between wedding planning meetings that made me want to vomit, I consumed every piece of Christian content I could find. And something terrifying was happening. It made sense. Not the "this confirms what I already believe" kind of sense. The "this is shattering everything I thought I knew" kind of sense. I started with the Gospel of Matthew. I'd been taught that the Bible was corrupted, that it couldn't be trusted, that the Quran had superseded and corrected it. But as I read, I kept waiting for the corruption, the obvious contradictions, the blasphemies, the lies I'd been promised I'd find. Instead, I found Jesus. Not a prophet who pointed to someone greater. Not a messenger who said, "Don't worship me, worship God." But Jesus himself, claiming to be God. Bold. Direct. Undeniable. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." In Islam, that was the ultimate blasphemy. Shirk. The unforgivable sin. Claiming divinity. Claiming exclusivity. But as I read those words, something in my chest ached, not with offense, but with longing. With recognition. With something I couldn't name but desperately needed. I read about Jesus healing the sick. Touching lepers when everyone else avoided them. Defending an adulteress when religious men wanted to stone her to death. Welcoming children. Empowering women. Challenging authority. And I thought, this is nothing like the Islam I know. In my world, women were property. In Jesus's world, they were disciples. In my world, questioning was rebellion. In Jesus's world, he invited doubters to touch his wounds. In my world, love was transactional, conditional on obedience. In Jesus's world. I stopped reading and closed my laptop, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. This was dangerous. Not just legally dangerous, spiritually dangerous. I was standing on the edge of apostasy, and if I took one more step, there'd be no coming back. So I did what any smart person would do. I stopped. For 2 days, I didn't open that folder. Didn't search anything. Tried to shove it all back into the box it had escaped from. But you can't unlearn truth. You can ignore it. You can run from it. But you can't unlearn it. 10 days before the wedding, my father took me to meet with the imam who would perform my nikah, the marriage contract. His office smelled like old books and tobacco, walls lined with Islamic texts in Arabic and English. The imam was an elderly man with a white beard that reached his chest, kind eyes, and a gentle voice. I'd hoped talking to him might help. Might give me some clarity. Some peace. "Sister Amira," he said warmly, gesturing for me to sit. My father stayed in the room, of course. I was never allowed to speak to men alone, even holy ones. Especially holy ones. "Your father tells me you have some concerns about your upcoming marriage." I glanced at my father. His expression was neutral, but I knew that look. It was a warning. Choose your words carefully. I started, then stopped. How do you explain existential terror to someone who thinks that terror is righteousness? "I'm scared. Of marriage. Of everything changing." The imam nodded sagely. "This is natural. All brides feel this way. But remember, dear sister, marriage is half your deen, half your faith. You are fulfilling Allah's purpose for you. Your husband will guide you, protect you, provide for you. You need only to submit, and you will find peace." That word again, submit. But what if? I swallowed hard. What if I don't love him? The imam's expression shifted slightly. Not unkindly, but with a sort of pitying patience. Love is not the goal, sister. Love may come, or it may not. But love is not required. Obedience is required. Respect is required. Fulfilling your duties is required. Love? He waved his hand dismissively. Love is a Western concept. We have something better: commitment, obligation, fear of Allah. Fear. Always fear. Do you know what the Prophet said, peace be upon him? The Imam continued. He said that if a woman prays her 5 prayers, fasts her month, guards her chastity, and obeys her husband, she will enter Jannah through whichever gate she wishes. My father nodded approvingly. Your path to paradise runs through your husband, the Imam said, leaning forward. Through serving him. Through bearing his children. Through never refusing him when he calls you to bed. This is your jihad, sister. Your holy struggle. And if you succeed, eternal reward awaits. I left that office feeling like I'd been buried alive. That night, I opened the Bible again. And this time, I didn't stop. I read about the woman at the well, a Samaritan woman with 5 failed marriages and a current boyfriend, someone any decent religious person would avoid. But Jesus sat with her, talked with her, offered her living water, treated her with dignity and respect and like she mattered. I read about Mary Magdalene, a woman with a scandalous past whom Jesus defended and honored. Who was the first witness to his resurrection? The first evangelist. A woman. I read about Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners, infuriating the religious establishment because he spent more time with broken people than proper people. And then I read this, and it broke something open inside me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I read that verse 5 times. Then 10 times. Then I lost count. Come to me, all who are weary. I was so tired. So incredibly, bone-deep exhausted from carrying the weight of expectations and fear and obligations that were crushing me into dust. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Islam was not easy. Islam was heavy, endless rules, constant fear of punishment, a God who was merciful in theory but terrifying in practice. Love was mentioned, but always conditional. Always transactional. Always dependent on your performance. But this Jesus who said come to me, he wasn't demanding. He was inviting. He wasn't threatening. He was offering rest. Rest. When was the last time I'd felt rest? I started comparing. I know you're not supposed to. I know Muslims say you can't compare Islam and Christianity because Islam is the final, perfect revelation. But I couldn't help it. In the Quran, women are fields for men to plow. In the Bible, husbands are called to love their wives like Christ loved the church, sacrificially, completely, to the point of death. In Islam, a husband can beat his wife if he fears disobedience. In Christianity, love is patient, love is kind, love keeps no record of wrongs. In Islam, I had to earn my way to paradise through perfect obedience. In Christianity, Jesus said it is finished, salvation was a gift, not a wage. In Islam, Allah felt distant, unknowable, more interested in my compliance than my heart. In Christianity, Jesus called God Abba, Daddy, and invited me to do the same. The differences weren't subtle. They were staggering. 1 week before the wedding, I found a sermon online by an ex-Muslim pastor. I watched it with headphones at 3 in the morning, the volume barely above a whisper. He said something that stopped my world. The difference between Islam and Christianity can be summed up in one sentence. In Islam, you work your way up to God, and you never know if you've done enough. In Christianity, God came down to you, and He says you're already enough. You're already enough. I'd never heard those words in my life. Not from my father. Not from my mother. Not from any imam or teacher or religious authority. I was never enough. I was always lacking. Always one prayer short, one mistake away, one moment of disobedience from hellfire. But Jesus said I was enough. Just as I was. Broken, terrified, doubting, failing. I paused the video and sat in the darkness of my room, tears streaming down my face. Is this real? I whispered to the empty air. Jesus, if you're real, if this is real, I need to know. Because if I believe this, if I choose you, it will cost me everything. My family. My safety. My life, probably. So I need to know, are you worth it? Are you real? I didn't expect an answer. I'd asked Allah similar questions 100 times and gotten only silence. But this time, something shifted in the atmosphere of my room. Something I can't fully explain, something you'll probably think I'm crazy for claiming. But I felt it, a presence. Warm. Gentle. Overwhelmingly peaceful. And in my spirit, not audibly, but clearer than any sound I'd ever heard, I heard. I am worth it. And you are mine. I sat frozen, tears pouring down my face, my whole body trembling. It wasn't Allah's voice. I knew Allah's voice, the stern, distant, demanding voice I'd imagined my whole life. This was different. This was love. Pure, undiluted, unconditional love. And I knew, with a certainty that bypassed logic and evidence and everything rational, I knew that Jesus Christ was real. That He was God. That He was standing in my room at 3 in the morning in a palace in Riyadh, seeing me, knowing me, claiming me as His own. I should have been terrified. I'd just committed the unforgivable sin. I'd just embraced shirk. I just damned myself to Islamic hell. Instead, I felt peace. Real peace. For the first time in 17 years. 6 days before the wedding, I whispered a prayer I never thought I'd pray. Jesus, I don't fully understand you yet. I don't know if I believe everything about you. But I know you're real, and I know you see me, and I know I need you. So, if you'll have me, I'm yours. Save me. Please. However you need to do it. I'm yours. It wasn't a sophisticated prayer. It wasn't theological or proper or doctrinally sound. But it was honest. And somehow, I knew He heard it. The countdown continued. The wedding preparations accelerated. My father finalized the last details. Khalid sent me increasingly possessive messages. But something had changed in me. Something fundamental. I'd found Jesus in the darkness. And I didn't know how He was going to save me. I just knew He would. For days before the wedding, I had a dream that destroyed everything I thought I knew about reality. But it wasn't just a dream. If you've ever had a visitation, a real, genuine encounter with the supernatural, you know the difference. Dreams are hazy, forgettable, illogical. This was more real than anything I'd experienced in my waking life. I went to bed that night exhausted from another day of wedding preparations. My room smelled like jasmine from the incense my mother had burned, trying to calm my nerves. My wedding dress hung on the back of my closet door, a white ghost watching me in the darkness. I fell asleep praying. Not to Allah. To Jesus. Whispering his name like a lifeline, Jesus. 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 And then I was somewhere else. I stood in a place that wasn't a place. The ground beneath my feet was solid but glowed with a soft, golden light, like standing on illuminated glass. The air was warm, gentle, and smelled like something I'd never smelled before but instantly recognized: home. It smelled like home. Above me, the sky wasn't dark or light, it was both. Stars hung so close I felt like I could touch them, but there was also a brightness that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I looked down at myself. I wasn't wearing my abaya. I was wearing a simple white dress, plain and clean. My hair was uncovered, falling loose around my shoulders. In my world, I would have been indecent. Here, I felt free. Amira. My name. Someone said my name, and the sound of it wrapped around me like a blanket, like strong arms, like everything I'd ever needed and never had. I turned. And I saw him. Jesus stood maybe 10 feet away from me, and the moment my eyes met his, I collapsed to my knees. Not because I was forced to. Not out of religious obligation or fear of punishment. I fell because my legs couldn't hold me in the presence of that much love. Let me try to describe him, though words are completely inadequate. He was tall, taller than the men in my family. His skin was olive-toned, Middle Eastern, darker than the blonde European Jesus in paintings but lighter than my own Saudi complexion. His hair was dark brown, wavy, falling to his shoulders. His beard was full but neat. But it was his eyes. Oh God, his eyes. They were brown, deep, rich brown like polished wood or warm honey. And when he looked at me, I felt seen. Completely, totally, terrifyingly seen. Every secret I'd ever kept, every sin I'd ever committed, every dark thought, every moment of doubt, he saw it all. And he loved me anyway. Not in spite of it. Not overlooking it. He loved me through it, with it, including it. I started sobbing. Uncontrollable, gut-wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I'm sorry, I choked out, though I wasn't even sure what I was apologizing for. Everything. Nothing. Just sorry for being me. He smiled, this gentle, knowing smile that broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. And then he walked toward me. Each step he took made the ground pulse with light. Not harsh or blinding, soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Like the whole universe was breathing in time with his movements. He knelt in front of me. Jesus, God in flesh, knelt before me like I was royalty and he was the servant. Amira, he said again, and this time his voice was closer, richer, fuller. It sounded like music. Like thunder. Like my father's voice should have sounded but never did, strong and gentle at the same time. Look at me. I couldn't. I was too ashamed. Too broken. Too aware of every way I'd failed. He reached out and gently lifted my chin with his hand. His touch. How do I describe his touch? It was warm, not hot, but warm like sunlight on your skin. And the moment his fingers made contact, I felt something surge through me: peace. Joy. Power. Love so intense it was almost painful. Look at me, he said again, softer this time. I looked. And I saw tears in his eyes. Jesus was crying. For me. Over me. With me. Why are you crying? I whispered. Because I feel what you feel, he said. Every moment of fear. Every night you begged for rescue. Every time your father looked through you instead of at you. Every violation. Every threat. Every crushing weight of expectation, I felt it all. I carried it all. I carry you. The sobs came harder. I couldn't speak. Couldn't form words. I just knelt there, held by his gaze, undone by the reality that God knew my pain and didn't dismiss it or minimize it or tell me to be stronger. He felt it with me. "You've been praying to the wrong God," he said gently, not accusatory, just factual. "Allah cannot save you, Amira. He doesn't even know you. But I do. I've known you since before you were formed in your mother's womb. I've watched every tear you've cried. I've heard every prayer you've whispered into the darkness. And I've been waiting, so patiently waiting, for you to call my name. I did, I managed. I called your name. 3 days ago. I said I was yours." His smile widened. "I know. And the moment you did, all of heaven celebrated. Do you know what you are to me, Amira?" I shook my head. "You are my daughter. Not my servant. Not my slave. My daughter. My beloved. My chosen one. Before the foundation of the world, I chose you. I set you apart. I marked you as mine. And no man, not your father, not Khalid, not any power on earth or in hell, can take you from my hand." Something broke open in my chest. Not physically, spiritually. Like a dam that had been holding back a lifetime of pain and fear suddenly shattered, and everything came pouring out. "I don't want to marry him," I sobbed. "I can't. I can't do it. Please. Please don't make me." "I won't," Jesus said firmly. "That marriage will not happen. I promise you." "But how?" "The wedding is in 4 days. Everything is planned. Everyone is coming. My father will kill me if I refuse. Khalid will. Amira." His voice cut through my panic like a sword through water. "Do you believe I am who I say I am?" "Yes." "Do you believe I died for you? That I rose from the dead? That I conquered death and hell and every power that seeks to destroy you?" I think so. I want to." He leaned closer, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Then trust me. What I have promised, I will fulfill. The wedding will not happen. I am going to do something that will leave no doubt, not to you, not to your family, not to anyone watching, that you belong to me and me alone. All I need is your faith. Do you trust me?" Did I trust him? I'd known him for less than a week. I'd been taught my entire life that he was a prophet at best, a blasphemous lie at worst. Everything in my culture, my family, my upbringing screamed that this was insanity. But looking into his eyes, feeling his presence, experiencing this overwhelming love that asked for nothing and offered everything. "Yes," I whispered. "I trust you." Jesus stood, pulling me to my feet with him. He was still holding my hand, and I never wanted him to let go. "There is a cost, Amira," he said, his tone serious now. "Following me will cost you everything. Your family will reject you. Your community will call you traitor. You will lose your wealth, your status, your safety. You may lose your life. I need you to count that cost. Is knowing me worth it?" I thought about my father's empty eyes. My mother's resigned silence. Khalid's cruel promises. The golden cage that was suffocating me. The prayers to Allah that bounced off the ceiling. the crushing weight of trying to earn a salvation that was always just out of reach. And then I thought about this: Jesus, kneeling before me. Jesus, crying with me. Jesus, calling me daughter. Jesus, promising to fight for me. "You're worth it," I said. "You're worth everything." His face transformed, joy radiating from him like light from the sun. He pulled me into an embrace, and I buried my face in his chest and wept. His arms around me felt like safety. Like home. Like every good thing I'd ever longed for and never found. "My brave daughter," he murmured, his hands stroking my hair. "I am so proud of you. I am going to use your story to set captives free. Thousands will come to know me through your testimony. You are going to shine my light in the darkest places. But first, I need to get you out of that palace." He pulled back, keeping his hands on my shoulders. 3 days from now, one day before the wedding, I am going to reveal myself to your household. What I do will be undeniable. And when I do it, you must be ready to run. Do you understand? Run where? I've already prepared the way. Someone will help you. Trust them. Trust me. And remember, no weapon formed against you will prosper. Not because you're strong enough to fight them, but because I am strong enough to protect you. The dream started to fade. The golden ground beneath my feet grew hazy. Jesus' image began to blur. Wait. I reached for him, panicking. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Amira. His voice was distant now but still clear. I will never leave you. Not for a second. Not for a breath. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. You cannot see me, but I am there. In the fire. In the storm. In the valley of the shadow of death, I am there. And I will bring you through. I love you, I said, the words spilling out before I could think them. His smile was the last thing I saw. I know. I loved you first. I woke up gasping, tears streaming down my face, my heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. My room was dark. Silent. The wedding dress still hung on the closet door like a ghost. But I wasn't the same person who'd fallen asleep. I'd seen Jesus. Touched Jesus. Been held by Jesus. And he'd promised that the wedding wouldn't happen. 3 days. I had 3 days to wait. 3 days to trust. 3 days to hold on to the most impossible promise I'd ever received. I got out of bed, fell to my knees, and prayed, not the formal, ritualistic prayers of Islam, but the raw, desperate prayers of a daughter talking to her father. Jesus, I don't know how you're going to do this. I don't know what undeniable means. I don't know where I'm supposed to run or who's going to help me. But you said to trust you. So I'm trusting you. Please, don't let me down. I can't survive this without you. And in the silence of my room, I felt it again, that presence. That warmth. That peace that transcends understanding. He was with me. And somehow, impossibly, miraculously, I knew everything was about to change. If you're watching this and you've never experienced Jesus like that, I know it sounds insane. I know it sounds like religious hysteria or wish fulfillment or mental breakdown. But I'm telling you, it was real. More real than anything in this physical world. And if you're desperate enough, if you're broken enough, if you're at the end of yourself and every other god has failed you, call his name. Just once. Sincerely. And watch what he does. Because the Jesus I met, he doesn't do things halfway. When he moves, heaven and earth take notice. And in 3 days, my entire household was about to find that out. 3 days felt like 3 years. I moved through the hours like a ghost in my own life, nodding when my mother showed me seating arrangements, smiling when aunts arrived from Jeddah to help with preparations, standing still while the seamstress made final adjustments to the wedding dress that I would never wear. But inside, I was counting down. Waiting. Watching for Jesus to move. My father noticed my strange calmness. On the second day, he pulled me aside in his office, suspicion darkening his features. "You've been different," he said, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Quiet. Compliant. What changed? I met his eyes, those cold, dead eyes, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. "I found peace, Baba," I said simply. He nodded, satisfied, completely misinterpreting. "Good. You've finally accepted your duty. Allah has given you wisdom." I said nothing. Let him think what he wanted. In less than 24 hours, he'd know the truth. The night before the wedding, our palace was full of people. Extended family had flown in from across Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. The women's side was a chaos of laughter, henna, traditional songs. They decorated my hands and feet with intricate henna designs, beautiful prison tattoos marking me as a bride. Khalid arrived around 8 p.m. for a brief, chaperoned visit. He looked confident. Victorious. Like a hunter who'd finally cornered his prey. "Tomorrow," he said, low enough that only I could hear while my mother busied herself with tea, "you become mine." Finally. Do you know how long I've waited for this? "Tomorrow," I repeated, my voice steady, "you're going to see the power of the God I serve." His smile faltered. "What?" "Nothing," I said sweetly. "Just that tomorrow will be unforgettable." He looked confused, then irritated, then dismissed it with a wave. What could a powerless girl do? I was trapped. Defeated. His. Or so he thought. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my bed, the Quran my father had given me years ago on my nightstand, and next to it, hidden under a scarf, my phone with the downloaded Bible. Around midnight, I heard it, the call to prayer echoing across Riyadh. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. For 17 years, that sound had been the rhythm of my life. Now it felt like a funeral dirge for a God who'd never answered. I picked up my phone and opened the Bible to a random passage. My eyes fell on Exodus 14. "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." I read it again. And again. And again. "The Lord will fight for you." "Okay, Jesus," I whispered. "It's your move. I'm trusting you. Please, don't let me down." I finally fell asleep around 3 a.m., my phone clutched to my chest, that verse still glowing on the screen. I woke to screaming. The wedding was supposed to start at 4 p.m., a lavish affair at one of Riyadh's most expensive venues. But at 10 in the morning, the house erupted into chaos. I ran out of my room to find my mother in hysterics, my father shouting into his phone, and my sisters gathered in the hallway looking terrified. "What happened?" I asked. My mother grabbed my shoulders, her face pale. "The venue, there was a fire. Overnight. The entire building is destroyed." My heart stopped. "What?" "Everything," she sobbed. "The decorations, the stage, the kitchen, everything burned. They're saying it started around 3 a.m. No one was hurt, but the building is gone. The wedding can't happen there." 3 a.m. The exact time I'd been praying. The Lord will fight for you. My father was livid, barking orders into his phone. I don't care what it costs. Find another venue. The wedding happens today. Today. But it was Friday, the Muslim holy day. Everything was closed or booked. Hours passed in frantic phone calls and increasingly desperate attempts to find an alternative. Every venue was either unavailable or asking astronomical prices for last-minute bookings. By noon, my father made a decision. We'll do it here, he announced. At the palace. We'll move everything here. The sheik can perform the nikah in the main hall. We'll make it work. My stomach dropped. The wedding was still happening. Just here. I went back to my room, closed the door, and fell to my knees. Jesus, what are you doing? You said the wedding wouldn't happen. You promised. The venue burned down, but they're just moving it here. Please. Please. I need you to show up. I need the miracle you promised. Silence. Then, in my spirit, gentle and firm, trust me. This is exactly where I want them. Everyone, all in one place. To witness what I'm about to do. By 2 p.m., the palace was transformed. Our main hall, a massive space with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, was set up for the ceremony. Chairs arranged, flowers placed, the sheik in position. Khalid arrived at 3, dressed in formal white thobe and gold-trimmed bisht. He looked smug. Satisfied. Unshakable. I was dressed in my wedding gown, white silk and lace, a veil covering my face. Underneath, my hands shook uncontrollably. Jesus, where are you? I prayed silently. Everyone is here. The contract is about to be signed. Where are you? My father came to get me at 3:45 p.m. It's time. I followed him down the hallway, my heart hammering, my mind screaming. The main hall doors were closed. Behind them, 200 guests waited, family, friends, business associates, everyone who mattered in my father's world. We stood outside the doors. My father turned to me, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Almost like regret. Almost like love. But then it was gone. Don't embarrass me, he said. The doors opened. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, every eye on me, traditional wedding music playing, women ululating in celebration. I saw Khalid at the front, standing next to the sheik. He was smiling. That terrible, possessive smile. And I prayed, silently, desperately, Jesus. Now. Please. Now. We reached the front. My father placed my hand in Khalid's. His palm was sweaty, his grip tight, too tight. Claiming. Possessing. The sheik opened his Quran and began the ceremony. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We are gathered here to witness the union of Khalid ibn Abdullah and Amira bint. The lights went out. All of them. Every chandelier, every lamp, every light in the palace, gone. The room plunged into complete darkness. Gasps. Confused murmurs. Someone's phone flashlight clicked on, then another. It's just a power outage, my father said loudly, his voice strained. Continue, Sheik. But the sheik wasn't listening. He was staring at something behind me, his face drained of color, his mouth hanging open. I turned. And my soul left my body. There, in the center of the main hall, was a light. Not from a phone. Not from a candle. not from anything natural. It was a pillar of light, bright, golden, radiating from floor to ceiling. And it was growing, expanding, filling the room with a brilliance that should have been blinding but somehow wasn't. People were screaming, backing away. Some ran for the doors. But I couldn't move. Because inside that light, I saw him. Jesus. He stood in the center of the pillar, exactly as I'd seen him in my dream. Tall. Powerful. Eyes blazing with love and authority. And he was looking directly at me. Amira, his voice boomed, not harsh, but undeniable, filling every corner of the room. Come to me. Khalid's hand released mine like I'd burned him. He stumbled backward, terror on his face. I took a step toward Jesus. Then another. My veil fell away. My wedding dress rustled against the marble floor. Stop her, my father shouted, but his voice sounded weak, powerless against the presence filling the room. Jesus extended his hand toward me. And I ran. I ran to him like a child runs to their father, like a prisoner runs toward freedom, like someone drowning runs toward air. When I reached him, the light enveloped me, warm, safe, perfect. He placed his hand on my head, and I felt power surge through my body. This is my daughter, Jesus declared, his voice echoing with divine authority. Whom I have chosen. Whom I have redeemed. Whom I love. And no one, will take her from me. He turned his gaze to my father, who had fallen to his knees, his face ashen. You have used my name to justify your cruelty, Jesus said, and his voice carried judgment now. You have oppressed the weak. You have caged my beloved. You have called evil good and good evil. Today, you will know that I am. The light intensified, and then, I don't know how else to describe it, the light exploded outward in a wave that knocked everyone backward. Not violently, but firmly. Like being pushed by invisible hands. When the wave passed, the room was filled with a presence so heavy, so thick, that everyone was on their knees. Not by choice. They simply couldn't stand. My father was weeping. Actual tears. I'd never seen him cry in my entire life. Khalid was face down on the floor, trembling. The sheikh had his hands raised in surrender, whispering prayers in Arabic. And I stood in the center of the light, held by Jesus, completely and utterly protected. Go, Jesus said to me, his voice gentle now. Out the east door. A car is waiting. The driver knows where to take you. Go now, daughter. I will hold them here. What about you? I whispered. He smiled. I'm already everywhere. Now go. Your new life is waiting. I ran. Through the side door he'd indicated, down a corridor I barely registered, out into the brutal afternoon heat of Riyadh. There, idling at the side gate, was a white SUV with tinted windows. The driver, a woman in hijab whose face I didn't recognize, pushed open the passenger door. Amira, she said in accented Arabic. Get in. Quickly. I didn't question. Didn't hesitate. I jumped into the car, my wedding dress bunching around me. She hit the gas before my door was even closed. As we sped away, I looked back at the palace. The lights were back on. I could see figures moving inside, confused, terrified, changed. Who are you? I asked the driver. She glanced at me, and her eyes were kind. I'm Sister Rachel. I'm part of an underground network that helps ex-Muslims escape. Jesus told me in a dream 3 days ago that I'd be driving you today. That you'd be wearing a wedding dress. 3 days ago. The same night he appeared to me. I started laughing. Then crying. Then both at once, this hysterical, relieved, overwhelmed combination of every emotion I'd ever suppressed. He kept his promise, I sobbed. Jesus kept his promise. He always does, sister, Rachel said softly. He always does. We drove for hours. Out of Riyadh, toward the coast, to a safe house I can't describe because it's still in operation, still saving lives. But as the sun set over the desert, painting the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink, I sat in the back seat of that car, still wearing my wedding dress, still shaking with adrenaline, and I prayed. Not a formal prayer. Not a ritualistic prayer. Just this, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The wedding didn't happen. Khalid never touched me. My father's control shattered the moment Jesus showed up. And I, Princess Amira, the girl who was supposed to submit and disappear, I was free. Not because I was strong enough to free myself, but because Jesus loved me enough to fight for me. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Jesus isn't a distant God who watches your suffering and calls it character development. He's a God who shows up. Who intervenes. Who performs miracles that leave no room for doubt. That day, 200 people saw him. 200 witnesses to the supernatural power of the risen Christ. Some denied it. Called it mass hysteria or a gas leak hallucination. But some believed. My youngest sister, Layla, she reached out months later. She'd seen him too. And she wanted what I had. Jesus doesn't just save you. He makes sure everyone knows he's the one who did it. Freedom, I learned, is not the absence of chains. It's the presence of purpose in the midst of danger. Sister Rachel drove through the night. We didn't stop except for gas at remote stations where she paid cash and kept her eyes scanning for any sign of pursuit. I stayed low in the back seat, my white wedding dress covered with a black abaya Rachel had thrown over me. Where are we going? I asked around midnight, my voice hoarse from crying and praying and processing the impossible thing that had just happened. Jordan first, Rachel said, her eyes never leaving the road. We have contacts at the border. Christians who help people like you. From there, we'll see. It depends on how aggressively your family pursues you. My family. The thought of them sent ice through my veins. My father had seen Jesus. He'd been knocked to his knees by divine power. He'd witnessed the undeniable reality of the living God. But I knew him. And I knew that pride and shame are more powerful than revelation for some people. He wouldn't see what happened as God's intervention. He'd see it as humiliation. Public disgrace. His daughter, his property, stolen by the Christian God in front of 200 witnesses. And he would want revenge. We reached the Jordanian border at dawn. The crossing was a nightmare of tension, my heart pounding so hard I thought the guards would hear it, certain that any moment my father's connections would reach across the desert and drag me back. But Rachel handed papers to the border agent, documents I didn't understand, stamped with seals that looked official. The guard barely glanced at me, waved us through. How? I whispered once we were safely across. Rachel smiled. Jesus has people everywhere, sister. In governments, in police forces, in places you'd never expect. He prepared this escape long before you knew you needed it. We drove to Amman, to a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood where 3 other women lived, all ex-Muslims, all refugees from their own families, all bearing the scars of choosing Jesus over everything else. They welcomed me like I was family. Fed me. Gave me clean clothes, jeans and a t-shirt that felt scandalous and liberating at the same time. Let me sleep for 16 hours straight while they kept watch. When I woke, one of them, a Syrian woman named Fatima who'd escaped Damascus, sat with me and told me what to expect. "The first weeks are the hardest," she said gently. "Your family will look for you. They'll use every connection they have. Your father is wealthy, which means he has reach. You need to stay hidden. No social media. No contact with anyone from your old life. Not even the friends you think you can trust." "What about my sisters?" I asked, thinking of Layla. "What if they want to reach me?" Fatima's expression was sad. "Then they'll find a way. Jesus will make a way. But you cannot risk reaching out first. One intercepted message, one traced call, that's all it takes." I nodded, understanding but hating it. I'd escaped the wedding, but I was still running. Still in danger. Still looking over my shoulder. 3 days after arriving in Amman, Rachel sat me down with her laptop. "I need to show you something," she said carefully. "It's going to be difficult. But you need to know what's happening." She pulled up Arabic news sites. There, on 3 different outlets, were stories about my family. About the incident at our palace. The official story was that I'd had a mental breakdown. That I'd been seduced by Christian missionaries online who'd brainwashed me. That my family was devastated and seeking help to deprogram me and bring me home safely. My father had given an interview, his face a mask of concern and grief. "My daughter is sick. She needs medical help." These Christian groups prey on vulnerable young women, filling their heads with lies and fantasies. "We just want her home and safe." No mention of Jesus appearing. No mention of the light. No mention of 200 witnesses seeing the supernatural. They'd buried it. Covered it. Rewritten reality to protect their reputation. "They're lying," I whispered, fury and hurt warring in my chest. "Of course they are," Rachel said. "The truth would destroy your father's standing. Admitting that Jesus showed up in power? That would mean admitting Islam couldn't protect them. That Allah didn't intervene. That everything they built their lives on is false. People will deny what they saw with their own eyes rather than face that." But then she showed me something else, private messages. Social media posts from people who'd been at the wedding. People I didn't know, friends of cousins, distant relatives. I was there. I saw the light. I saw him. And I can't unsee it. Whatever happened at that wedding wasn't natural. I don't know what I believe anymore. I felt something in that room. Something holy. Something that terrified me and drew me in at the same time. I need to know more about this Jesus. Tears filled my eyes. "They saw him. They saw him," Rachel confirmed. "Your escape wasn't just about you, Amira. It was a testimony. A declaration. And seeds were planted that day that will bear fruit for eternity." 2 weeks after my escape, they found me. Not my family, but their agents. Hired men who tracked digital footprints, followed the Underground Railroad, paid informants. I was walking back to the apartment from a nearby market, my headscarf wrapped loosely, beginning to feel almost safe. The black sedan pulled up beside me too smoothly. Too deliberately. 2 men got out. Large. Professional. Cold eyes. "Amira bint Abdullah," one of them said in Arabic. "Your family is worried about you. Come with us." It wasn't a request. My mouth went dry. My legs locked. Every instinct screamed run, but where? They were blocking the sidewalk. The street was busy but indifferent. No one would intervene. "I'm not going back," I said, hating how my voice shook. "You don't have a choice," the second man said, reaching for my arm. And then, I still don't fully understand how, a car screeched to a halt between me and the men. The door flew open, and a voice shouted in English, "Get in. Now." I didn't think. I jumped into the back seat. The car peeled away, tires screaming, leaving the two men standing on the sidewalk, confused and furious. My rescuer was a man in his 40s, Western, with kind blue eyes and a cross tattooed on his forearm. "David," he introduced himself, accent American. "Missionary. Got a call 10 minutes ago from someone who said I needed to be on this street right now. Didn't question it. Glad I listened." "Who called you?" I gasped. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression almost amused. "Honestly? I don't know." The voice just said, "My daughter needs you. Corner of Zeron Street." So here I am. My daughter needs you. Jesus. Jesus had called him. I started laughing, that same hysterical, overwhelmed laugh from the night of my escape. Because of course he did. Of course Jesus had a missionary in the right place at the right time. Of course he was still fighting for me. David took me to a different safe house. Then, 3 days later, to another. And another. For 2 months, I lived underground. Moving every few weeks. Never staying anywhere long enough to feel settled. Learning to look over my shoulder. Learning to trust no one except the small network of believers who formed a human shield around me. My father's reach was long. His money longer. He hired private investigators. He pressured Jordanian officials. He used his connections to make my life as difficult as possible. But Jesus was longer still. Every time they got close, someone warned us. Every time a trap was set, we were moved before it sprung. Every time I felt hopeless and alone, someone would show up, bringing food, bringing encouragement, bringing exactly what I needed in that moment. The cost, though. The cost was brutal. I lost everything. My family declared me dead. Actually dead. They held a funeral for me. I saw the photos online. My mother in black, weeping over an empty grave. My sisters standing silent, hollow-eyed. Layla tried to reach out once, a single encrypted message. I saw him too. "I believe you. But I can't leave. Not yet. I'm sorry." That message broke something in me. I wanted to be angry, to judge her for staying. But I understood. She was 14. She had no resources. No way out. And I couldn't blame her for surviving. My bank accounts were frozen. My passport was cancelled. Interpol had me listed as a missing person, but the reality was more sinister. I was being hunted under the guise of rescue. I owned nothing but the clothes on my back and a backpack of borrowed items. But you know what I had? I had Jesus. And for the first time in my life, I understood what he meant when he said, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?" I'd lost my world. My golden cage. My designer clothes and marble floors and the illusion of security that wealth provides. But I'd gained my soul. I'd gained freedom. I'd gained a father who actually loved me. For months after my escape, the network made a decision. I needed to leave the Middle East entirely. "Your father won't stop," Rachel told me over a crackling video call. She'd moved on to help others by then. "And the longer you stay in this region, the more danger you're in." We have contacts in Europe. They can get you asylum. Asylum, I repeated. The word felt foreign. You mean I'd be a refugee? You already are a refugee, she said gently. You're just making it official. So I went. Through a network I still don't fully understand, with documents I couldn't read and a journey that took weeks, hidden in trucks, walking across borders at night, staying in churches and shelters and the homes of strangers who took one look at me and said, Jesus sent you. You're safe here. I ended up in a small city in Germany. Cold. Gray. Nothing like the desert I'd known my entire life. But free. Legally, finally, undeniably free. The nightmares came, though. Oh God, the nightmares. I'd wake up screaming, convinced Khalid was in my room. Convinced my father had found me. Convinced the wedding was still happening and everything, all of it, had been a dream. PTSD, the counselor at the refugee center told me. Trauma. Your brain trying to process what you survived. Some nights, I'd sit on the floor of my tiny apartment, hugging my knees, and whisper, Jesus, was it worth it? Was choosing you worth losing everything? And every single time, I'd feel his presence. That same warmth I'd felt in the dream. That same peace. And I'd remember, I didn't lose everything. I lost things that were killing me. I lost a cage. I lost chains. I lost a God who didn't love me and a family who never saw me. What I gained was worth infinitely more. 6 months after my escape, I got baptized. In a small church in Germany, in front of 50 people I barely knew but who'd become family, I walked into that water and went under, symbolically dying to my old life. And when I came up, gasping and laughing and crying all at once, I heard it again, this is my beloved daughter, in whom I am well pleased. The pastor asked me afterward if I wanted to share my testimony. To tell my story. And I said yes. Because I realized, my story isn't just mine. It's every girl who's ever felt trapped. Every person who's ever prayed to a silent God. Every soul who's ever wondered if freedom is worth the cost. And the answer is yes. 1,000 times yes. I lost my family. I lost my country. I lost my wealth and status and every material thing I'd ever known. But I gained everything I needed. A father who fights for me. A savior who died for me. A spirit who empowers me. And a purpose that makes every loss feel small in comparison. I'm not a Saudi princess anymore. I'm a daughter of the King of Kings. And that's an identity no one can take away. I'm recording this testimony 2 years after my escape. 2 years since Jesus appeared in my Father's palace and shattered every chain that bound me. Let me tell you what my life looks like now, not because it's glamorous or easy, but because you need to see what's on the other side of obedience. I live in a small apartment in Europe. 1 bedroom. Second-hand furniture. A kitchen the size of my old closet. I work part-time at a refugee center, helping other women who've escaped situations like mine. I study online, working toward a degree in counseling. I don't have money. Some months, I barely make rent. I don't have designer clothes or marble floors or servants. I shop at thrift stores. I take the bus. I eat simple meals and count every euro. And I have never been happier. Because happiness isn't about what you own. It's about who owns you. I used to belong to my father. To Khaled. To a system that saw me as property, as a commodity, as something to be controlled and consumed. Now I belong to Jesus. And he sees me as his beloved. His chosen. His daughter. His warrior. And that changes everything. My mornings start with prayer. Not the ritualistic prayers I used to perform out of obligation, bowing toward Mecca 5 times a day while my heart stayed silent and cold. Now I pray like I'm talking to someone who's actually in the room with me. Because he is. Good morning, Jesus, I say, usually before I even get out of bed. Thank you for another day. Thank you for safety. Thank you for freedom. What do you want to do today? And sometimes I get clear direction, a name that comes to mind, someone I need to reach out to. Sometimes I get a verse from scripture that becomes my anchor for the day. Sometimes I just feel his presence, that gentle warmth that says, I'm here. You're not alone. We're doing this together. I read my Bible like it's oxygen. Because it is. In my old life, the Quran was something I memorized but never understood, recited but never absorbed. It was rules and regulations and threats and promises of hellfire for the smallest infractions. But the Bible? It's a love story. From Genesis to Revelation, it's God pursuing humanity, refusing to give up on us, willing to die for us. And every time I read it, I find Jesus on every page, in the prophets, in the Psalms, in the Old Testament shadows that point to his light. I've read the Gospel of John 17 times in 2 years. And I cry every time I get to chapter 15, where Jesus says, You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain. He chose me. Before I knew his name. Before I could pronounce his name correctly. Before I understood anything about grace or salvation or what it meant to be loved unconditionally. He chose me. I joined a small church, mostly refugees, mostly ex-Muslims, all of us carrying stories of supernatural encounters and miraculous escapes. We meet in a rented hall. We worship in broken German and Arabic and English. We don't have fancy programs or celebrity pastors or big budgets. But we have Jesus. And when we worship, he shows up. I've seen him heal people in our services. I've watched a Syrian woman who couldn't walk for 3 years stand up and dance during worship. I've seen addicts set free. I've seen people delivered from demons that had tormented them for decades. Because Jesus doesn't need a cathedral to move. He just needs people who believe he's who he says he is. We pray for each other. We carry each other's burdens. When I couldn't pay rent last month, 3 people from the church showed up with cash, anonymous donations that covered everything with extra left over. Jesus told me you needed this, one of them said, pressing euros into my hand. Don't argue. Just receive. That's what the body of Christ looks like. Not perfect. Not polished. Just people who've encountered Jesus and can't help but reflect his love to others. My family? I haven't spoken to them since the day I escaped. My father tried to reach me once, about a year ago. An email that somehow found its way through multiple security measures. The subject line read, "Come home." I almost deleted it without reading. But something made me open it. Amira, you've been deceived. You've brought shame on this family that can never be erased. But I am willing to forgive you. Come home. Renounce this Christian madness. Return to Islam. We can arrange a quiet marriage, somewhere far from Saudi Arabia. You can start over. But you must come home. Your mother cries for you every day. Your sisters ask about you. Come home before it's too late. I read it 3 times. And each time, I felt the manipulation. The guilt. The veiled threats hidden under the language of forgiveness. Come home before it's too late. Translation: come home before we stop offering mercy and start pursuing justice. Come home before honor killing becomes the only option. I wrote back once. Just once. Baba, I love you. I forgive you. But I will never come home. The Jesus you saw in our palace that day is the same Jesus who lives in me now. He is real. He is God. And He is the only way to the Father. I pray that one day, you'll stop running from what you witnessed and bow your knee to the King you saw with your own eyes. Until then, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Your daughter in blood, but a daughter of the Most High God by choice. Amira. I never heard back. But Layla, my baby sister, she reached out 6 months ago. A single message through an encrypted app. I can't live like this anymore. I need Jesus. Help me. We spent weeks planning her escape. The same underground network that saved me mobilized for her. It was riskier this time. My father had tightened security on all my sisters after I left. But Jesus made a way. 3 months ago, Layla walked across the Syrian border into Turkey, and from there to Greece, and finally, she made it to me. I met her at the train station. When I saw her step off that train, wearing jeans and a simple hijab and carrying a single backpack, I ran to her. We collapsed into each other's arms, both of us sobbing, both of us laughing, both of us overwhelmed by the goodness of a God who saves. You came, I kept saying. You actually came. You showed me the way, she said through tears. You showed me it was possible. Layla lives with me now. She got baptized last month. She's learning German. She's healing from the same trauma I'm still processing. And she's on fire for Jesus in a way that humbles me. I wasted so many years being afraid, she told me recently. But not anymore. Jesus didn't save me to hide. He saved me to shine. That's my sister. 17 years old and braver than most people twice her age. So that's my life now. Small. Simple. Hidden from the world's standards of success. But I'm free. I wake up every morning without fear. I go to sleep every night knowing I'm loved. I eat meals without the crushing weight of expectation. I wear what I want. I worship freely. I read my Bible in public. I say Jesus' name out loud without terror. And I'm using my story. I speak at churches, at conferences, at refugee centers. I share my testimony anywhere people will listen. Because I know, there are others out there like me. Muslim girls trapped in golden cages. People enslaved to religions that promise paradise but deliver bondage. And they need to hear, there's a God who sees you. Who knows you. Who loves you. Who will fight for you. His name is Jesus. And He's worth everything you'll lose to gain Him. Now, if you've watched this far, I need to talk directly to you. Maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you've prayed to Allah your entire life and felt nothing. Maybe you've performed every ritual, followed every rule, and still feel empty. Still feel afraid. Still feel like you're one mistake away from eternal punishment. I was you. And I'm telling you, Jesus is real. The Jesus I met isn't the prophet of the Quran, diminished, neutered, made safe. He's the Jesus of the Bible. Fully God. Fully man. The only mediator between God and humanity. The only one who can save you. Islam will tell you that's blasphemy. That it's shirk. That you'll go to hell for even considering it. But I've met both gods, Allah and Jesus, and I can tell you, they're not the same. Allah is distant, demanding, and unknowable. Jesus is present, loving, and pursuing you even now. You don't have to earn his love. You can't. That's the point. He offers it freely. He died to give it to you. And all he asks is that you receive it. Maybe you're not Muslim. Maybe you're atheist, agnostic, spiritual but not religious. Maybe you've written off Christianity as just another oppressive system. I get it. I thought the same thing. But Jesus isn't a system. He's a person. And he's offering you the same thing he offered me, freedom. Purpose. Unconditional love. A life that matters beyond the accumulation of things and the approval of people. You don't need to clean yourself up first. You don't need to get your life together. You don't need to understand everything about theology or the Bible or church history. You just need to come to him. Exactly as you are. Broken. Messy. Doubting. Failing. He specializes in people like us. Maybe you're already a Christian, but you've forgotten what Jesus saved you from. You've gotten comfortable. Complacent. You go to church out of habit. You pray out of obligation. Your faith has become routine. Let me remind you, you serve a God who appears in pillars of light. Who stops weddings. Who orchestrates supernatural escapes. Who fights for his children with heaven's armies. Don't reduce him to a Sunday morning ritual. Don't make him safe and predictable and boring. He's not. He's wild. He's dangerous. He's utterly unpredictable and completely trustworthy at the same time. And he's calling you to radical obedience. To the kind of faith that costs you something. That makes people think you're crazy. That sets you apart from this world because you belong to a different kingdom. Here's what I need you to do right now. Wherever you are, in your room, on your phone, hiding your screen from family members, I need you to make a choice. If you want what I have. If you want to know this Jesus who appears in dreams and stops forced marriages and orchestrates impossible escapes. If you want to be free, truly, completely, eternally free, then pray with me right now. Don't wait. Don't say, I'll do it later, or I need to research more, or I need to get my life together first. The enemy of your soul wants you to wait. Because he knows that if you encounter Jesus, everything changes. So pray with me. Out loud, if you can. In your heart, if you can't. Say this. Jesus, I don't fully understand you. I don't know if I believe everything about you. But I know I need you. I know the life I'm living isn't working. I know I'm empty, afraid, lost, trapped, whatever I am, I know I need something more. I've heard about what you did for Amira. How you appeared to her. How you saved her. How you fought for her. And I'm asking you to do the same for me. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe you're God, and you're the only way to the Father. Forgive me for everything I've done wrong. Every sin. Every rebellion. Every moment I've lived for myself instead of for you. Come into my heart. Take control of my life. Make me yours. I don't know what this will cost me. But I'm saying yes anyway. Because you're worth it. Save me, Jesus. I'm yours. Amen. If you just prayed that, if you meant it, everything just changed. You might not feel different immediately. You might not see angels or hear voices or experience a dramatic encounter like I did. But I promise you, heaven is celebrating right now. Angels are rejoicing. And Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Creator of the universe, He's smiling over you. Because you just became His child. His beloved. His chosen one. And nothing can snatch you out of His hand. Now listen carefully, you need to do 3 things. First, tell someone. Find a church. Find a Christian you trust. Join that underground network if you're in danger. But don't try to do this alone. Jesus saved you into a family. You need them. Second, get a Bible. Read it. Start with the Gospel of John. Let Jesus introduce Himself to you through His own words and actions. Third, pray. Every day. Not rituals. Not performances. Just talk to Him like He's your Father. Because He is. He'll guide you from there. He'll show you the next step. He'll make a way where there seems to be no way. Just like He did for me. My name was Princess Amira. I was forced to marry my cousin. I was trapped in a golden cage with no way out. And then Jesus stopped the wedding. He appeared in power and glory. He declared me His daughter. He orchestrated my escape. He sustained me through persecution. He gave me a new life, a new family, a new purpose. And He'll do the same for you. Not because you're special. Not because you've earned it. Not because you're good enough. But because He's love. Perfect, unconditional, relentless love. And love always comes for His own. So come to Him. Right now. While there's still time. Because tomorrow isn't promised. But He is. This is my testimony. This is my story. This is what Jesus did for me. And He's waiting to do the same for you. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't let fear win. Choose Jesus. Choose freedom. Choose life. He's worth it. I promise you, He's worth everything. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have eternal life. John 3 verse 16. If you prayed the prayer, reach out. Find help. You're not alone. Jesus loves you. And so do I.